Okay,
Looks good.
so yeah, great. Okay, so I'll get started. So my name is Laura Jones, and I am the Continuous Improvement Manager at Welsh Water. So I get involved with a lot of the retail side of the business. So we have a clear distinction between the operational side and the retail side of Welsh Water. And my role involves managing everything to do with continuous improvement within the retail arm of the business. So that entails a small training team, a quality improvement team, our customer insights, and Duika, our ideas portal. So without further ado, I shall tell you all about our ideas portal journey. So why an ideas portal? So the thought of an ideas portal first came about through a number of different avenues, really. So there was through the Innovation in Organisations Community of Practice group, we recognised that there was a number of other companies who had similar ideas portals. From an engagement perspective, our employees were telling us that they wanted a way to raise their improvement ideas and be able to see these ideas all the way through from creation through to implementation. We recognised that we had a number of challenges over the next 5 years, and we wanted to engage with our employees across the business to help us achieve some of our strategic objectives. And there was quite distinct areas that we were looking for improvement opportunities. And we wanted to reach out to employees across the organisation to really help us in that journey and get the best ideas from a grassroots perspective upwards. And we wanted to embed a continuous improvement culture. So this was a key part of, again, best practice across other organisations. We had established a continuous improvement culture within the retail arm of Welsh Water, but we wanted to take this to the next level. So we recognised that there was, areas of improvement, and we wanted to create a much stronger culture of CI across the organisation. And really provide a mechanism to foster generated ideas. So some of the feedback we were getting off, particularly agents, they were saying to us, there is no kind of real mechanism in which I can raise my idea and see it getting taken forward. And I think in a lot of instances, they were probably raising it perhaps with their team leader who maybe didn't have the skills or capacity to take that idea forward. So therefore, we wanted to create a mechanism in order for them, to do that. So that was kind of the basis for it. So in setting up the ideas portal, we took a lot of learnings from the innovation group, and there was a number of different things that I personally learned as part of attending that programme. So in the first instance, as I said, best practice. So we had links with a member of the group who was a member of Ford, and we kind of went to their offices and saw how innovation could be brought to life. So they had an innovation room, and how seriously they took ideas within the organization, and and how they brought them to life. So that was really kind of a bit of an eye-opener for myself in particular, is how we could create kind of this culture and buzz throughout the organization of generating ideas and seeing them all the way through to implementation. Another key aspect, once we'd made the decision to introduce the ideas portal, was using the objective, reflective, interpretive and decisional model to help us build the business case. So this was really important because obviously the concept needed to be proven and the business case needed to be viable. Obviously, it was required an investment on behalf of Welsh Water to set up the portal in the first place, and resource to manage it. So obviously, the business case needed to be sound in order for us to get approval and then progress with the implementation of it. And we used those kind of various different stages to help us build that business case. We then, human-centered design was a massive part of how we actually designed the ideas portal. And also it was a key tool that I took back to my team. So I ran a workshop where I actually brought to life human-centered design, and actually got the team to think about using Lego, how we could actually build the concept of the ideas portal, and making sure that we integrated with all of the key stakeholders to make sure that we designed it in a way that was going to work and get the best out of the ideas portal going forward. We also used the process mapping tools, so this enabled us to map out every step of the ideas portal and how we were going to bring those ideas to life, how we were going to implement them, and the various different gates that we wanted to introduce as part of the governance process in the background. We also use the action learning log to reflect, learn and plan throughout the various cycles. So we implemented the ideas portal in a very kind of agile way. So we introduced various different stages, and obviously tried to get it implemented as quickly as we could, but stood it up fairly quickly. But then we soon realized that there were several different phases to the ideas portal, and we've definitely gone through quite a cycle in the last 12 months, and we're now at a point where we're evolving the ideas portal even further. And throughout that process we've kind of reflected, learnt on what we've done, and then planned through the next cycle and the various stages of the ideas portal. So we definitely have used that model on a lot of repetitive cycles to help support us. In terms of approach and timeline, so the original timelines that we had were quite tight to get the ideas portal up and running. So we originally went out and procured, so once we've signed off the business case, and the lead team agreed to progress with the ideas portal, we went out to the market to look at potential suppliers of the portal, and quite quickly realized that there was a leader in the market for the ideas portal, and we progressed that fairly swiftly. So from September to December we went through the procurement process and signed with the new supplier. We then built the ideas portal through December to January, and as part of that process designed how we were going to progress the ideas, to make sure that we had a robust process from creation to implementation. We launched the ideas portal in January 2020, and with a naming challenge. So we got all of the colleagues involved in actually naming the ideas portal. So this was a good way to engage them initially with the portal, and obviously get them to have a look around it and familiarize themselves with it. But also it was important because it was an employee engagement portal. We wanted to make sure that they were involved in naming it. So we then asked them to vote on their preferred name, and the name that got selected was Eureka. We then quickly went into obviously COVID lockdown shortly after we'd launched the ideas portal, and obviously there was a shift in priorities. So the business, understandably, from kind of March onwards was relocating to working from home, and there was lots of other activities going on. So obviously the ideas portal was kind of lower down on the list of priorities. So we decided to relaunch it in June of 2020, and as part of that relaunch, obviously majority of our employees were working from home at that point, so it kind of naturally fitted with the working from home model as well, because it was accessible portal, a software that they could access from home as well. And we saw a big spike in the number of ideas that were generated, and we've seen a steady kind of increase really in the number of ideas that we had over the subsequent months. And our first idea was implemented in August of 2020. So we have implemented a number of other ideas since, but that was the first one that we managed to get over the line and implemented, quite shortly after we'd relaunched the ideas portal, which was quite nice then, because colleagues could see that actually their ideas were getting implemented. Just moving on. So this is our ideas portal. So this is the front page of the portal, and is completely configurable. So we've designed the front end of the software. We actually have changed the rebrand several times over the last 12 months to just keep it fresh, keep it interactive, and obviously, keep it engaging really. So we started off by launching, as I say, the naming campaign, and the name Eureka was selected. And then we have kept that name, but changed the design on a number of occasions just to keep it engaging and keep people interested really in the ideas portal. So how did we develop the governance process? So we developed what we called a small change group, and we had colleagues from across our project and continuous improvement team working together to evaluate the ideas that were coming in. So where we had an open challenge on the ideas portals that basically people could raise ideas about anything that they wanted to, that impacted them or affected their day-to-day work, or were customer facing ideas that we could improve customer experience on. And each of those ideas could obviously be generated by any colleague that had access to the ideas portal. The ideas then would come into an initial review, which would be completed by our idea managers. So we used managers from across the business, and we identified their area of responsibility and basically asked them to review those ideas initially, just to sense check that they were feasible ideas. So I myself was the customer service idea manager, and I would be looking at any ideas that were related to improving our customer experience, because obviously that fell into my remit. And then in terms of the system and process ideas, which we had, the majority of our ideas fell into this category, because it would often require a system change, investment, or a project manager to implement. These would feed into our project team. So every Thursday they would take off new ideas. These would be taken to our small change activity group, and they would assess the ideas and then progress them forward then for prioritization. So if, for example, it was a system change, then that would need to go to our program board to approve the spend and the resource to implement those ideas. So if they were approved, they would obviously then progress to the idea analyst, and then the idea would go through into our discovery backlog for implementation. So the reason backlog is because we had a fair number of ideas and still have quite a number of ideas. And what we quickly found was obviously it created a bit of a backlog to implement. But we obviously have been working through those the last few months to try and move those forward and reduce down the backlog. But we were almost a victim of our own success in that first few months we had quite a lot of ideas come through, and obviously each one of those needed to be investigated and to assess whether it was feasible or not, and then obviously is the time and investment then to implement those ideas. So once the ideas are implemented, we would then do a final calculation of benefits and obviously record that in our benefits tracker. So benefits tracking is a theme throughout the whole process, really. So in order for an idea to be classed as feasible, obviously there needs to be an initial high level benefit assessment, so that we can understand whether that idea is viable. And we also use that benefit to prioritize our work. So obviously, we're looking at different categories of benefits, but if something has a significant efficiency saving, for example, then that would obviously be classed as a higher priority for us to work on and implement than a lower efficiency saving, for example. So moving on into our idea volume. So this just gives you a bit of an idea around how many ideas we've seen through the implementation of the ideas portal. So we started off with a big spike into January and February as we were launching the portal. Then, as I say, March, April, May, it kind of dipped down substantially because obviously we were all setting up working from home, and as I say, there were other priorities going on in the business. In June, then when we relaunched it, we saw a fair spike, and that was maintained really throughout the summer period and into the winter. We saw a slight decline, but we did see quite high engagement levels through that first 2 quarters really of relaunching the portal. And then we've seen a steady trickle then since. We have actually closed the portal in July to work through some of the backlog. So we sent Eureka off on a summer holiday, and we did really positive communications around it. But we essentially kind of needed to get through the backlog because we've had in the region of 607 ideas, and obviously each one of those does take a bit of time to review and analyze and implement. So we wanted to make sure that we'd kind of broken the back of the majority of those ideas before we kind of reopened it. So we did close it over the summer period just to catch up. But engagement levels are still high with the portal, and obviously plan to relaunch it now this month to get those new ideas back in. Just to give you an idea of some of the ideas that were raised. So this one was off Jessica, and she had an idea to send payment reminders before the payment was due instead of after the payment date. So our recovery cycle tended to be quite retrospective. So if a customer hadn't made their payment, we would then send a reminder, whether it was via text or letter. And then also it would fall into our dialer campaign to ring customers. But what we were finding in dialogues with the customer is that it wasn't necessarily that the customer couldn't afford to pay, they'd just forgotten and obviously had other things on their mind and had just missed the payment date. So Jessica had an idea to actually be a bit more proactive with customers and send reminders before the payment was due. So a really kind of very customer friendly message, but to send a text or a quick phone call just as a reminder to the customer of their payment date, rather than doing it retrospectively. So we implemented that idea as part of a text campaign, initially as a trial, and we're really encouraged by the results. And Jessica, was really, there's a comment there from Jessica, but she was, really pleased that her idea had been put forward, and it made her feel really proud that we decided to put that idea forward and implemented it. So, it's really good from an engagement perspective because people really do feel like their ideas are being listened to and that, we're doing something on the back of them. There's another idea, a success story came from one of our team leaders. So within our collections department again, so she came up with an idea of preventing emails from getting sent incorrectly. So what was happening is we were we draft a lot of emails to customers through email correspondence, and sometimes people do make mistakes, don't they? And some of the emails were going out with incorrect information. So what she suggested is, particularly when GDPR came in, to prevent us from making errors on emails, that we actually put a delay into the Outlook, so that there was a 2-minute delay that would allow the agent to just double check their information that they had sent, because quite often what she was had found was that agents would realize the mistake quite quickly after they'd sent it, but by then it was too late. So by having this 2-minute delay, it would just allow them to just take stock and reflect on the information that they'd sent, but be able to retrieve it if it was incorrect at all. And she again was really pleased that we'd listened to her idea, and felt that it just give her and her team an additional control, just to make sure that information that was sent was correct. So what we did with the idea success stories is we actually put them on the portal. So we would allow people to be able to see the ideas that were implemented, and then they would encourage them then to put forward future ideas. So in terms of overall benefits that we've seen so far since introducing the ideas portal, so we're in the region of £130,000 worth of benefits. And that's just the ones that we've been able to quantify, because obviously there are quite a lot of intangible benefits. So things like improving the working environment, which doesn't have a direct cost saving to the business, but is a really still an important thing to do, and improving the working environment helps from an engagement perspective. And then ultimately, if employees feel engaged, they're more likely to provide a better customer service. So there are a lot of indirect benefits, but in terms of the ones that we've been able to quantify, the majority have been in the region of so these 4 areas we are strategic objectives. So as a business, we have quite a considerable cost challenge for the next 5 years, and we need to be looking at how we're reducing the amount of billing queries that are coming into our contact centres, and also the amount of operational calls that we're getting, because obviously for every call that we have to service that. There is a cost obviously associated with that. So there is a big drive to reduce billing and operational calls. We've had a number of ideas in this area, whether it be improving a particular customer process so that we then don't get as many contacts in, or whether it be reducing the average handling time of managing each of those contacts that comes in. So there's been a number of ideas that have obviously given us some efficiency savings there. Reducing our debtor pots, because again, for each of the debtors that we have to chase, there is a cost associated with that. So there's been a number of ideas around that, and also reducing our complaints. Again, there's obviously we want to improve processes because we want to have a better customer experience, but there's also a cost to processing each of those complaints. So for us, there was a lot of opportunities in there that we could actually derive a financial saving from, and that's the kind of total benefit that we're looking at so far. There's still a number of ideas that we're working through, so I expect that figure to go up. And obviously, as we reopen the portal as well, we'll have new ideas coming in, which will obviously be giving us some benefits as well. So what worked as part of the introduction of the ideas portal, engagement was a huge part of it. and still is. So when we launched the portal, we were back in the office at that point, and we did, a big campaign. We had a showcase stand downstairs in our offices where people could come along and have a look at the portal. We also obviously encouraged them then to put forward their suggestions around naming the portal, and we had a number of different quite specific challenges. So we opened it up and asked for, at the time, their feedback and ideas on our cash collection processes. And we had a number of ideas came through on that. But it was, for us, it was really important engagement, just making sure that everyone sees this as an employee ideas in portal, and they support it by putting our ideas forward, and then see those all the way through to fruition and implementation. So it was really important to bring everyone along on the journey with us, because without the employee ideas, the portal doesn't exist. So that was a vital part of it. Keeping everyone up to date has been really important. So we've listened to people's feedback throughout, and we run feedback 15 sessions, which is kind of 15 minutes once a week, with agents from across the business. And as part of that, we've gathered their feedback on what they liked about the ideas portal, what they didn't like, and tried to evolve it over time. So it's really important to to keep everyone up to date, but also get them involved in the actual process, and making sure that we evolve the process, because the ideas portal needs to be kept up to date, and we constantly learning and reviewing how we're doing things, and changing it for the better. Another big part of it is just celebrating success. So singing the successes from the rooftops. So we've done a lot of communication work. So every time an idea gets implemented, we put it on the front page of the ideas portal. We have an internal Yammer system, which is a communication systems, which we promote the idea implementation on there as well. We've gone to team meetings and huddles to raise awareness of the ideas that have been implemented, and just constantly reminding people of the successes, because if people can see their ideas getting implemented, they're more likely to raise ideas in the future. So what did we learn? So I think the two key points I've put on here is trying not to over-govern the process. So we were burnt a little bit in the beginning by that. So we created a bit of a beast in terms of an implementation process, and there were lots of people involved in the implementation process. So it did on times become a little bit bureaucratic. So we stripped that back to that we now have two key people that are running the ideas portal, and they manage it centrally amongst themselves. And we've also reviewed the different stages that an idea would go through and streamlined that. So we had various pieces of documentation we were completing along the way, just to kind of verify that we'd gone through a thorough process of reviewing each idea. But in doing so, we created a bit of a beast in terms of the amount of documentation and stages that an idea needed to go through. So we've stripped that right back and made it far more agile, and owned by two individuals. It links me into the next point, which is making sure you've got the appropriate resource levels. So if you want ideas turned around quite quickly and you want to keep engagement levels high, then we learned that you need to have the right resources in place. So hence the reason we're kind of victims of our own success. So we had 600 ideas, but obviously each one of those needs to be investigated, and we got to a point where we were still having, roughly around 10 ideas per week coming in. And we got to a stage where we had to kind of, send Eureka on holiday for a period of time to allow us to kind of catch up with the ideas that had come in. Because going back to the engagement, is that, it's really important people see things happening with their ideas. And obviously what we didn't want was to carry on, taking new ideas in, but people not seeing them progressing. So it was really important to us that we got through, the ideas that had already been raised, and took a bit of a holiday, and then came back to, reopen it, where we could kind of, more swiftly deal with the ideas that were coming in. So what's next for our ideas portal? So we want to obviously continue to prove the return on investment. Obviously there is a cost associated with running the ideas portal, and we're keen to show the leadership team that it is worth the investment. And as I say, so we have more than paid for the costs of the ideas portal in the first 12 months. But obviously we want to continue demonstrating that return on investment. Keeping the momentum, so keep talking to our idea creators about their ideas, and also keep talking to them about how we can evolve the ideas portal. So with the relaunch, and when we reopen it now this month, we've been talking to some of the people that have raised the most ideas on the portal and are the most engaged, getting their ideas about how we can improve the processes going forward. And continuing to, they are kind of ambassadors of the ideas portal across the business, so continuing to encourage them to put ideas forward and tell us about how what improvements they'd like us to make on the ideas portal. And then the next phase for us is launching the portal wider. So we launched it initially in the retail area of the business, but the rest of Welsh Water are now coming on board with Eureka. So there'll be a much wider enterprise now across the rest of Welsh Water, with some kind of 3,000 employees. We initially, within the retail area of the business, we've got about 400 employees on the portal. So obviously being able to cast our net a bit wider and get more people across Welsh Water involved in the portal is really positive step, and allows us to just get more great ideas coming forward. So that was it for me in terms of the presentation. Any questions off anyone?
Thanks very much, Laura.
No
really impressive. Glad you've managed to achieve so much. Firstly, it was great for me to see the number of different tools and techniques that you've used from the program, in different ways. So that was really pleasing. I think I've got a couple of people typing. And one question from me, and you've said you've learned quite a lot during the process. In terms of a template or a pro forma for those that are suggesting ideas, did you put something together, and has that changed?
Yeah, because initially we kept it very open. So obviously, because the portal was new, we wanted to almost open the floodgates, because we wanted to encourage people and make it really easy for them to put forward their ideas. But obviously in doing that, we've kind of been a victim of our own success, in that, we have had quite a lot of ideas that we have rejected. So you get to a point then where you want to evolve the process and maybe put a bit more kind of verification and a bit more substance behind the ideas that get generated in the future. So I think it's a natural progression with any ideas portal. I think initially it's about engaging people, making it as easy as possible, but we've now got to the stage where we realize that actually there's quite a significant investment of time to look at every idea, and obviously what we want to make sure is that they are all kind of fairly viable ideas, and as in doing that, we want to kind of evolve that front end process and make sure that there is a bit more kind of thought behind those ideas, to make sure that the ideas that come in through to us are very viable ideas. So we are looking to introduce you know, more of a pro forma with more questioning, and considering, you know, whether it needs to be ambassadored by a team leader or a middle manager, so that we've got that kind of level of assurance that they're on board with the idea as well before it comes through into the portal. Obviously, one of the challenges to that is that in the past, sometimes that's been a bit of a blocker in that they haven't necessarily had the skill set. So, you know, we are considering different ways, but there will definitely, when we relaunch it, be more kind of criteria to cover off, rather than we had, you know, two very open questions previously. So obviously there was a lot of ideas come through that weren't necessarily viable. So, but yeah, we definitely be looking to evolve that going forward.
It's a difficult balance. A lot of the businesses that I've kind of talked to work with is that you want to encourage ideas. Obviously, the more structure you give it and the longer you make the form, the less ideas are likely to come through. So it is a difficult balance. Loads of questions coming through. Obviously, a lot of people have really enjoyed what you've had to say. So one about how you manage rejection or rejecting people. That's again a difficult one, isn't it? Because you want to keep encouraging people.
Yeah, we were very keen from the start that would always be done in a very positive way. So we actually delivered training to our idea managers to that vein, to make sure that when they were feeding back to people, they weren't kind of crushing people, because obviously it's really important, isn't it, that we want people to be putting ideas forward. We don't want them to be put off by the fact their ideas being rejected. So we even kind of gave some, you know, positive feedback phrases that we encourage people to use to make sure that even though their idea was getting rejected, that it was done in a very positive way. You know, so it would be very much like, thank you for your idea. You know, the reason why this idea is not going to get implemented is because of X, Y, and Z, you know, but we're really keen to hear your other ideas in the future. So I think if it's done in a positive way, you know, we've seen a large number of people come back over and over, even though their ideas haven't necessarily been feasible in the beginning or been rejected. But I think because they can see that actually, you know, they are being considered and we've got a viable reason why we couldn't take that idea forward, you know, they're not put off then by that process, and you know, it's been done in a very positive way. So yeah, we haven't had you know, any criticism on that front. So I think we've obviously managed that well, and we have had, you know, future ideas coming through from those individuals. So hopefully they haven't been too put off.
Good, thank you. A question here about themes, and have you found themes in the ideas that have come through? And have you clustered those? If so,
yeah, definitely. And also from a benefits tracking perspective, we were keen to kind of categorize them so that we could give our leadership team sight of what were the key areas that ideas were getting raised on. The biggest theme by far for us was system and process. So we didn't see, so that the lower categories would have been things like engagement or working environment. So that to me suggests that obviously, you know, people are fairly comfortable, you know, in that vein. But yeah, by far the biggest category was system and process. So things like we have a lot of different systems. So we have a separate billing system, separate collection system, separate telephony system. And I think, you know, our agents do struggle having to navigate around so many different systems. They also come up with a lot of efficiency savings. So if I had this piece of information on this screen, this would help me do my job more efficiently. So that was by far, you know, the biggest area, and is also the most financially viable area for us. So it's been great for us because we could actually show an efficiency saving, which obviously, you know, adds to the weight of the return on investment for us.
good. Excellent. Question about employee engagement surveys. Do you do those, or have you got another measure that allows you to articulate maybe or quantify what you mentioned in the presentation about people feeling a little bit more valued and feeling that they've got a voice?
Yeah, we do. We complete regular employee surveys, and we've got one out at the moment, actually. So doing lockdown, obviously, because majority of our teams were working from home, it was really important to us that we did those regular employee engagement surveys. So we have a different mechanism that runs the engagement surveys, but we have seen from a engagement level perspective, so in terms of agents, understanding how their ideas are taken forward. We've seen an improvement in that area, which has been really pleasing, because it actually shows that they are feeling more listened to, and that has come across in the feedback survey. I suppose it is strange times, isn't it? And obviously we have been in lockdown, and obviously people working remotely and not part of a wider team. So obviously to have seen that improvement as well in terms of the levels of engagement and listening, it is positive, and obviously I think is partially attributable to the ideas portal, which is great.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great news. Another question here about you mentioned that you put a business case together using the ORID framework, which we introduced on the program. A question around initial barriers that you might have faced within the business and how you overcame those.
Yeah, so I think there was a fair degree of skepticism initially. So I think a lot of our senior leadership team had seen ideas portals in other organizations, and it's fair to say that initially there was a bit of a challenge as to how are we going to manage all these ideas, and but I think how we overcame that was we put together quite a robust process and said, well, this is how we want to manage it. The ideas portal is very interactive, very fluid, and it allows us to basically adapt at any point. So it wasn't a rigid portal that was like one size fits all. We could basically build the process that we wanted to, and that's why we went with the supplier that we did. And we were able then to say to the leadership team, look, we have created this process, and this is a process that's going to work for us. And that kind of helped them to see that actually we did have a robust process to deliver these ideas. So I think that's basically how we overcame it, was to just make sure that we weren't just going in with back of a fag packet. We actually had a robust process that we were looking to follow, and obviously that proved that point, and we got the business case approved.
Oh, excellent, great. So a question about, I suppose, culture really, from Claire at Huelva, and how the portal might have had an impact on the way that people see themselves as change agents. Do you think that's happened?
Definitely, and we've got some absolute advocates of the portal, and they're real ambassadors for us. And we've got a core group of, I'd say probably about 8 to 10 people that actively use the portal on a regular basis, and they're just so engaged with it. It's been fantastic. So it's really helped them, because I think before they felt that maybe they didn't have a voice, and that they weren't getting listened to, and that their ideas weren't getting progressed. And I think it's given visibility to them for their ideas, but it's also given them an appreciation of the process for us to from idea creation to implementation. So they're far more appreciative now of why it takes so long for change activity to perhaps happen, which has made them great ambassadors for the overall change process, because they feel listened to, but they also have a better appreciation of the change process and the steps we need to go through to make an idea viable. So yeah, it's been great from that perspective.
So you mentioned human-centered design earlier, or design thinking, which we talked a lot about on the program. So did you incorporate that, and have you managed to I suppose help people understand that using that framework?
Definitely. And this was as you know, Gary, I used this within my team. So my team were guinea pigs, and I used a Lego exercise to try and bring that to life. And get them to really think about, the end user and how we were going to incorporate their feedback into our design. And we definitely use that as part of the creation of the ideas portal, and continue to do that. As I say, we evolve the ideas portal. We're always looking at new ways of, reducing the time down from creation to implementation, of getting people more involved in the process. And we've done that recently, holding workshops with the users to actually understand, what it is they want to see different in the ideas portal.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. A quick question about which portal, which supplier you're using, or the name of the portal. I think obviously you've generated some interest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a company called Wazuku. So I will type the name in the chat in a minute. It's a bit of a awkward name to say, but yeah, they're a fantastic company. I've been really impressed with them. So as I say, we didn't look at an awful lot of solutions, because when we saw that one, we just thought, right, this is the one for us. And it was quite instantaneous, to be honest. It's an incredibly flexible system. They're really supportive in terms of, A, setting up the ideas portal, but B, just helping us get the best out of the portal. They have regular meetings with us to engage with us, understand, our end users, how many people are raising ideas, and they, at a drop of a hat, they're there to help us improve the portal as well. So I would definitely recommend them as a company and a software.
Great, thank you. So while you're thinking about that or typing that, I'll ask you another question.
Yeah.
And power and politics, which we talked about on the program. A question here about whether some managers of some of the people that made suggestions or put ideas forward had a view which coloured or stopped that idea maybe being developed or even being put in, and how you manage that.
Yeah, that's definitely been a challenge, and we continue to experience that. So I think as you know, when you're in the detail of something, sometimes it can be hard to see things from a different perspective, or equally, say, well, we've tried that before and it didn't work, and but it has been a bit of a challenge in just getting people to think about, doing something in a slightly different way, or trialing, something different. And probably on reflection, so we set up our idea managers by categories areas of responsibility that they already had. But I think maybe one of the lessons that, looking back, I might have done differently as well, was to maybe, swap people around a little bit, just to have a slightly different perspective. Because I think sometimes, when you're in the detail, you perhaps don't always see what might be a good opportunity. And yeah, that was a challenge initially, but I think we've overcome that by just constant engagement with them, and also my guys overseeing that overall process as well. So obviously, if they identified that particular idea manager was rejecting a lot of ideas in a particular area of responsibility, then obviously that's something we could call out, because that's the beauty of the ideas portal as well, is there's a lot of reporting and analytics that hangs off the back of it. So you can run reports, on anything basically, which allows you then to have that insight, to see how your ideas are progressing. But yeah, I think, what's been great about the process is we're constantly evolving it. And obviously, looking back now, there are some things which you think, oh, well, we might have done that differently if we'd known what we know now. But that's the beauty of hindsight, isn't it?
Yeah. And obviously any innovation is test and learn, isn't it?
Totally.
You've got to go through that process. And again, part of the HCD model or design thinking model is that prototype testing, and then going back to the beginning and going through the iterative loop.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. Another question here about whether you're considering opening up to customers. I mean, that another level of open innovation again.
Yeah, we are. It's on the pipeline. So as part of the rollout of launching it wider across Welsh Water, we're also going to have a separate customer facing portal. So we do currently ask for customers' feedback through our Welsh Water portal, but what we're keen is to just make it a bit more interactive. So at the moment, those ideas basically get raised on our website and then go off into a Excel spreadsheet. So one of the things we were keen to do was feed those ideas into the same process, so that obviously one of the advantages of the ideas portal is that you can have various different stages, there's more visibility of, and you can assign ideas to different users to look at. So yeah, we're definitely, that's the next phase for us, is to have a customer facing portal, which I think will be very exciting.
Yeah, and great development. Just a question from me. I know there were a few of you from Welsh Water. It was yourself and Kira from retail, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did that help, having somebody else from the same area going through the same program?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so there was three of us from retail, which really helped, because I think we all went through the same experience. So I think we took the learnings back and we got quite excited about it. So as an example, so when we launched Ideas Portal, I know myself and Kerry were keen that we kind of linked it in with a circular economy as well. So at the time, we launched a particular challenge around circular economy and looking at more efficient ways and in more environmentally friendly ways of delivering customer service. So we got a lot of really good ideas about reducing output and bill output. So those have actually been turned into a project, and we've got a project manager now specifically working on all opportunities, basically how we can reduce the number of bills that we send out, the number of letters, etc. Because obviously there's a cost saving, but obviously from a circular economy perspective is environmental advantages as well. So yeah, it was definitely helpful having them on the program, because things like that they understood. So when I was trying to sell circular economy to a group of managers that had no idea what it was, it really helped having them on the team to influence as well.
Oh, great to hear. Okay, and Neil's that impressed that he'd like to borrow some of your process maps and the framework that you've used, because they're looking to replicate in Carmarthenshire.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, by all means, yeah.
I'll put you in touch offline. Neil's currently on the CAKE program.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? I think I've managed to get through a lot of what I can see in the chat. I'm conscious of time and really grateful for sharing with us what you've managed to achieve. I'm really impressed with the cost savings, even more impressed with some of the environmental impact through reduction of obviously producing bills in the first place, probably getting them sent out as well. Any others before we close? Okay, well, thanks very much, Laura. It's been really interesting, really impressive, and yeah, glad you've got it up and running, and it's been such a success.
Yeah, and if anyone wants my contact details and wants to ask me any further questions, by all means, happy to help in any way I can.
Excellent. Thanks, Laura. Thank you very much.